Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So real quick one today. We're actually going to get straight on with the next part of our LT50 project. Now the next thing we're going to look at is the throttle cable. I was doing the front axle adjustment on this the other day, and I noticed that the throttle cable was really kind of gritty and not kind of returning properly. So I thought, perfect, it's the next little video. So we're going to go ahead today. I'm going to show you how to replace and set up your throttle cable. So yeah, let's take a look.
And if you get value from this video, hit the like button and subscribe to support this channel.
Right then guys, so as you can see, here's my throttle. Now what my problem is, if I just push my throttle all the way and then let go of it slowly, you can see it's sticking. So this throttle should automatically return by itself. So as you can see, it's a bit gritty. Now it could be the actual throttle mechanism that's obviously gunked up or jammed up or something, but more than likely it's probably the actual cable itself. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to replace this cable and obviously set up the cable. And what we're going to do, obviously, to replace the cable, we're going to have to take this apart, the actual throttle apart itself. So we're going to clean it all out, re-grease it and put it all back together, and then we'll set it up and adjust it. So this is going to be a real quick video, and yeah, nice easy little job for you. Now the first thing I'm going to do is remove the seat and rear mudguard. So obviously just under the back here there's two bolts up underneath, so I've removed them, and I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And then also by here there's two bolts. Now obviously what you want to do is go and remove these two bolts. Now I've already got mine out, and then go ahead and turn the fuel tap off, put it in the on position. I've done a previous video that explains how that fuel tap works fully, but just so you know, put it in the on position, and then you can go ahead and remove the fuel pipe and then remove that. So like I said, we'll go ahead and remove this fuel pipe. I'll see, a little bit of fuel will come out, but it's nothing too much. Now there is a vacuum pipe that goes from the back of the cylinder up to the back of the fuel tap, so we're going to have to remove that as well. And as you can see, that's my vacuum pipe. As I pulled it off, it's just pulled off the back of the cylinder, so we've got to make sure we put that back on after, and obviously the fuel pipe. So if you watch one of my previous videos on how to obviously strip and clean out and rebuild the carb, it's a really good video. It goes fully into depth with exactly how to take it apart, clean it, put it back together, make sure everything's right, and then actually how to set it up on the bike. So obviously I show you all this in that video, but I'm going to show you again just because obviously if you're doing the throttle cable, obviously you need to do the same thing. So there's two little Phillips screws in the top, so we're going to go ahead and remove them two screws behind the choke, and one in between the actual choke lever on the top. Sorry about the light here guys, it's a bit difficult today. I can't put my light on top of the camera because I can't see what I'm doing. So then what we're going to do is go and pull out the top. So by here we've got obviously our plunger for our choke, and we've got our float for our carb. Now there is a cut down the side of the float slider, which is by there, and obviously that locates into a groove inside. I'll show you that when we put it back together, but all we're going to do now, I'm going to get the screws out. So obviously two screws, put them aside, and then what we're going to do is we're going to remove this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull this spring back. So I'm just going to pull it back as far as I can. I'm going to hold it up against the cap, and then what that'll do is actually I can pull the cable down through the groove, and you'll see it's got this little nub, and the nub just hooks in, and we can go ahead and remove it. Now there is, if I just let that spring go now, and I'll just put that there for a second. Now if you look inside here, there is this piece of plastic with a slot. Now this goes in the top of the slider and obviously locates the spring, so make sure you don't lose that. And then there's your float, so we'll go ahead and set them aside as well. And then we got our spring which obviously is what returns that cable. So obviously we got a good spring, so there's nothing wrong on this end, so it's got to be the cable that's not allowing it to return. And then also there is a gasket. Obviously just make a note of which way it comes off. I'm going to lay it down as it came off, make life a bit easier. And then there is the top valve carb. Now obviously this is the top valve carb, so all the cable does then is just pull out. Now there is a bit of a seal on the top here, but I'm just going to put that aside as well. And then there it is, that's our cable. So there's our cable, obviously our inner part and outer part. There is an adjuster down by here. This is what we're going to use to adjust obviously the free play in the cable. And that's it disconnected, so we can go ahead now and take the throttle apart. Right, so now we're going to disconnect the other end. So obviously the cable comes up here and into the throttle. Now there's 2 Phillips screws. We're going to remove them 2 screws. These do get, now once you loosen them off, you can go ahead and obviously it's loose. Now if your grips are on, you're going to have to take these 2 screws out and split it, but I can go ahead and just remove that. And there is our throttle. Nice and simple. So we'll go ahead now and remove these 2 screws. Obviously you can do them on the bar, but like you say, I got no grips on this bike, so I can go ahead and just remove them. So if I go and take them 2 screws out, this top cap should just come off. So inside you can see pretty much, that's pretty much how it works. It's just obviously it's a little arm connected to the thumb throttle, and as you rev, it just goes ahead. Now there is a spring on here, so obviously you want to make sure that that spring is nice and loose. Now I'll be honest with you, with the bikes I'm used to, they usually have a wheel which is all grease, but this is all nice and dry in here. I'm guessing there's some sort of a bearing inside here, but I wouldn't want to go and fill it with grease because then all the dirt will stick to it. So we're just going to go ahead and replace the cable and put it back together. So now there's a little bit of a rubber block here, so what we're going to do, we're going to lift it out. It's a little bit on the tight side. Oh, there you go. Now what it is, there's actually a little metal boss that clips in. So what I'm going to do is just give it a bit of a spin and work it out. And there it is. So we've got that worked out. So you can see there now that little groove just locks into that casing. So I'm going to go ahead now and swivel the cable around and then wiggle it out. It's a bit fiddly, but not too bad. Right, now that took a little bit of fiddling about. So basically you can see this little slot cut out by here. So all you got to do is basically turn the cable, line the cable up, and then get it out. Now what I found was, because of obviously it's a wire cable and it's quite stiff, because I was bending the cable, it was twisting the nub and it wouldn't come out. So what I had to do was basically force the cable to kind of kink it, so then I could just wiggle it out. So obviously if you're replacing your cable, it doesn't matter so much. If you're obviously taking it apart to clean it or something, then obviously I'd be a bit more careful and try not to damage it. But like I say, I'm getting rid of this, so it doesn't really matter. So just throw it out of the way. Now obviously, again, like I said before, there is a spring on here, so you want to just make sure that spring is all working. I'd be honest, if the spring weren't, if you pulled that and let go, it would stay there. Now just for people who don't know this, obviously you do have an adjuster on the back here, so this is what adjusts your throttle travel. So if you've got a kid that obviously is a novice and learning, then what you can do is you can actually set this up to obviously restrict your throttle. So this is like your main restrictor. Obviously most of you will probably just have this backed right off to give it full throttle travel. So you can see there now, look, if I go all the way, it actually hits the casing before it hits the bolt. So what I'm going to do is just hold it flat out as far as it'll go and just wind it back down, and then I'm just going to wind it so it turns it back a touch, because I don't want this arm hitting this casing and doing any damage. So I'm just going to leave mine set there for now, and if I need to fine tune it later, I can go ahead and do so. But lock that off, there you go. So obviously 8mm spanner and just lock that off, but I'm just gonna set it there for now. Right, so here's my new cable. It's a high level. I got this off eBay. It's a pretty good, looks a pretty good quality. It's got everything it needs. It matches up to my original, so yeah, it's pretty much the right one. So one thing I did notice, a little difference, is this rubber here, which obviously goes into the throttle. Now the new cable didn't come with it, so what I'm going to do is just basically feed it over the end. I'm going to go ahead and put that, wrong end, go ahead and put that on here. So obviously that goes by there. And then we'll go ahead then and re-put it back together. Now, normally when I do a throttle on a bike or whatever, like an actual motorcycle, I would grease all this. But I'll be honest with you, looking at the design, I just think grease would just collect all the muck and water. So I'm going to leave it as is. I'm quite happy with it. It's nice and loose. It's nice and free. If yours was tight or binding, or maybe you want to take it apart and just clean it out and give it a grease, but there's nothing wrong with this one. So what I'm going to do now is insert the cable and then swivel that around, and there he is. Right, so we got him in. So what we're going to do now is insert this. You can see there you've got a gap which obviously sits into a groove. Now the other thing is you've got this rubber which we swapped over, which has got to sit in this outer groove. So what you need to do is line the two up at the same time. So there's the inner one and there's the outer one. And there we go, you can see that's nice there now, and just make sure it's all located. So that's located. Now the cap will push it all the way home if it's not quite there, but I can feel that with my thumb. It's pretty good. There we go, look at that now, it returns nicely. And if I show you the end, if I just throttle on and off, let go of the throttle, and she's returning nicely by herself, lovely and smooth, and that's it. So we'll refit the cap. Again, same as before. I'm just going to put these screws in loose, obviously because I'll slip it on the bar after. So I'll just wind them down. And I won't quite go all the way. There we go, and now we can go ahead and slip this back on the bar. Put it back roughly where it was. I'm going to fine tune obviously the location of this when I put grips on it. I haven't got any grips at the moment to line up, so what I'll do, once I've got it all set up, I'll put my grips on and obviously set the angle then to suit. So at the moment I'm just going to set it somewhere, I'll go a bit further down than that. There, set it about there. So I'm going to nip that up. Nip it, like you say, nothing, don't want it too tight. With these screws, what you want to do, you just want to give them a good nip. The idea is if someone was to crash and say they rolled it over and a rock hit on here, you want it to turn. So you don't want it to turn easily because obviously it could move while they ride in, but you don't want it too tight because obviously if a rock was to hit it and it wouldn't turn, it'll actually break the housing, where obviously you want it kind of slightly loose so it'll allow it to turn rather than break. So just a little tip there for you guys. Right then, so we've got it all connected up now at the top. Obviously that's all working. Now the next thing we need to do is thread the cable. Now I just noticed that when obviously this quad, it was threaded just down the side here, which obviously isn't right. So what it needs to do, it needs to actually go through the handlebars. So you can go ahead and just thread that through there. Now there's many different ways of running it, but what I'm going to do is just basically run it under the bars, so it's going from the throttle through the center of the bars, and then it's going behind you, just like my handbrake cable, my brake cable is coming down the other side. I'm just going to go underneath here, around, and then obviously run it across the top here. I'll probably put a cable tie or something to secure it, or what I'll probably do is just bend this and basically just put that under there like that, so that just sits there kind of nice. So we'll go ahead now. I'm just going to bend that out of the way for now and reassemble the other end. So we're going to go ahead now and put the carb side back together. So the first thing we're going to do is obviously put the top back on. Now there's a bit of a rubber boot here, so make sure obviously it's not cracked or perished or damaged. This one's in good nick. So there's that. Now there's also your gasket. So there is a bigger and a smaller hole. So the smaller hole basically goes over the choke, and then the bigger one obviously where the spring sits. Now the next thing we're going to do is insert our spring into the groove. There's a groove in the top it locks into. Now I'm going to pull it back as far as I can and then try and hold it back. It's a little bit awkward, but that's basically, now I'm holding the spring back with my 2 fingers. So as I said before, there's that plastic insert. Make sure it's the right way around. So obviously with the fatter side down and with the groove lining up with the groove on the side. And then we're going to go ahead and try and get that on camera for you, sorry, and basically locate the cable. Make sure the piece of plastic is in there, like the plastic is in there, and then we can release the spring, and then that holds all that into place, and that's it. So if I just hold that there now and just give my throttle a bit of a thing, it's all working, and that's it. So the next thing we'll do now is go and put it all back together. We're going to go ahead, make sure our gasket is all lined up. Now there is this slot in the side of itself, so that needs to be on the inside. So we're going to turn around and line that up. So I'll drop that into the hole first and kind of give it a twist to locate it. Make sure our gasket is lined up, and then we can go ahead and drop that back on top. And once we've got that in, we can take our screws. A magnetic screwdriver really does help here. Makes life a bit easier. Tighten them up. And that's it. That's all done. Right, so all that's left to do now with this cable is to adjust it. So I know it's hard to see because obviously I'm doing this, not yourself, but what you've got with the throttle cable is you should have, with this screw wound all the way up tight, you should have some free play. So if I was to push the throttle now, it'll go so far, it'll be loose. Now it is returning obviously because of the spring inside here, but it is loose, and then all of a sudden it'll kind of get stiff then for the rest. Now obviously that loose bit is your free play. What we're going to do now is, obviously we got our adjuster here, which is obviously there's just a thread. Now there's 2 8 mils on the side, and then there's a little lock nut. So we're going to wind it away, and then we're going to keep checking it, wind it a bit more, and then check it, wind it a bit more, check it, wind it a bit more, check it, bit more. Oh, nothing. Right, so there's a tiny bit there now, tiny. Now there's nothing there now. So now that is all throttle, but obviously it's not allowing us any sort of imperfection. You need, obviously, just in case something kind of catches or anything, you need a little bit of just free play. So as you can see there now, that's firm all the way. So I'm just going to back it up to give us a tiny bit of free play, and then our throttle. So I'm going to go ahead now and wind the lock nut down. I'll take 2 8 mil spanners and just lock the nuts together so it doesn't come loose, and then I can attach it to the frame, and that's all nice and snug. Right, so all we got to do now is refit our fuel tank. Now remember, like I said before, you've got your vacuum pipe which goes onto a port just on the barrel, and then we got our supply pipe. If you want to see more about that, definitely watch my fuel tap or petcock, whatever you want to call it, video, and that'll run you through everything you need to know. So we've connected our fuel pipe back up, and obviously I'll go around the other side now and I'll show you just where the vacuum pipe is. So just to show you the vacuum pipe, it's a bit awkward. My electrics have seen better days by here, but just behind you, just on the back of this, where the intake goes from the carb, you'll see this little brass port, and that pipe, basically, it's a bit awkward, but it needs to go. Right then, so that's pretty much it done. It's a really simple one today, guys. Obviously I haven't bolted my panels back on because this quad is I take this apart so much, it's unbelievable. So yeah, I hope you got value from this video. Remember, hit the like and subscribe, and like I've said in past videos, I am going to be raffling this quad off in the end. I'm not going to keep it, and it's definitely not going to be for sale. I know a few people have already approached me asking me how much I want for it, but no, I want to give it away, or raffle it off through the channel. So yeah, hit the subscribe button, like, obviously check down in the comments for all my previous videos. I've linked all my previous videos on this project, so take a look, and if there's anything you want to know, just put a comment down. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know if you think there's anything you want me to do next, or if you want me to do more time lapses or bits and bobs. Just put it all down in the comments, guys. I love getting feedback off everybody. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you at the next video.
And if you get value from this video, hit the like button and subscribe to support this channel.